Hello friends, very warm welcome. This is Ishant on behalf of Edureka. I hope all of you are doing good. So today we are going to see what are strings in Java. So let's see the agenda for the day. So we are going to look into what is a Java string, how strings are stored in the memory, that's like string pool. So what are the various ways by which we can create a string, and thereafter we'll see various methods available in the string class, and lastly we'll have some practical examples. Now when we are talking about strings, so we are basically storing the data which is like a lot of characters all together. So we can say they are sentences now. So you want to store a character or a letter or an alphabet, so we got char data type. But when it comes to a word or a sentence or a paragraph, right? So there we look into the string. So string in Java is an object. It represents the sequence of characters, kind of word or sentence. Then if we talk about string, so it's basically a class which is used to create and manipulate the string objects. So it is in the java.lang package. So that is how we say string is a reference type, not a primitive type. Now, when we create a string, it is immutable in nature. So what is meant by immutability? It means the data which is once there in the string object, it cannot be manipulated. So manipulation for the strings we cannot do. Now, if we're talking about Java strings, right? So we can process our textual data very easily. Given a use case, so we write a sentence, so we can very easily search some words in the sentence. We can use an API like contains, which can tell whether the word is there in the string or not, right? So searching is one of the inbuilt feature in the string API. Then we can divide our string into multiple parts. So we can say as a substring. Moving ahead, we can even create new strings out of the old strings. So for example, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. We can say the quick fox jumps and the quick lazy dog. So these are the different strings which we can manipulate our existing strings, and we can create the new string. But remember, the old string never ever changes. It's always the new string which is created, since strings in Java, they are immutable. Now java.lang.string is a class in Java. So guys, this class is basically implementing few interfaces: serializable, comparable, and char sequence. So when we talk about the class string, it's a final class which you cannot inherit. So every class in Java will be the child of object either you create or it's a built-in class. So it implements serializable, comparable, and the char sequence. So let us see what these three interfaces will be for strings. Now, serializable is just a marker interface. Now, when we talk about a marker interface, guys, so it will not contain any data member or method. It is basically marking the Java classes so that our compiler can come to know about these classes. Now, serializable are the ones for whom we can save the state in some files. So there's a concept called serialization and deserialization. So saving the state of an object and recovering the state of an object from a file. Now comparable is basically that if you have a string and if you want to order the data in the string, you want to sort, you want to compare. So you got some methods available with the help of which we can very easily do that. For example, a method called compare to can compare one string with the other string, whether they are equal or not. Then we got char sequence interface. Guys, this is a readable sequence of characters, and this is supposed to provide some read-only access. And the other thing is that char sequence is basically parent to three classes, right? String, string buffer, and string builder. Now, string is a class which can create textual content for us, where this guy is immutable. So we cannot change the data once it is created. So you can even say strings, they are nothing but their data or their values, they are literals and we cannot change them. But string buffer and string builder, they are again the char sequences which can manipulate the data within. So they are the mutable versions of the string. Moving ahead, buffer and builder, they are different in a way that buffer is not thread safe, whereas builder is thread safe. So my bad. Buffer is thread safe, whereas builder is not thread safe, right? So what is thread safety, guys? Thread safety is synchronization. When multiple threads, they are going to access the same single object, there we need synchronization. So string buffer is built in and it is by default synchronized, but the builder is not synchronized. So that is the difference between buffer and builder. Now we'll understand how we can create strings in the memory. So strings in the memory, they are created in an area called string pool. Now when we are talking about string pool, so Java string pool refers to collection of strings which are stored in the heap memory. So in the heap area, so there would be a string pool which will be created, and as string objects are immutable in nature, the concept of string pool came into the picture. So string pool will help in saving the space for Java runtime. So let us see how string pool is gonna work for us and how it's gonna save memory for us. Now, if you wanna create a string, there are two ways. Either you can create it as a literal, we call it an interned string, or you create it with the new keyword, we call it an object, right? So let us have a quick look on how we create a string and how the string pool comes into action. So considering we are going to use literal to create a string, so guys, Java string literal is created by just writing the string literal in double quotes. So how you will do it? You will say string str is Edureka. So you need to use these double quotes. So when I'm saying str, so guys, str is basically a reference variable which is pointing to Edureka, like this. So in the string pool, we got a literal called Edureka, and str will contain the hash code for that literal, and this is how we got a relationship mapping. Now, same way, when we want to create a new string with the same name, let's say I want to write another string, but that will also be Edureka. So for that, what happens? So before creating a string literal, right? So first a lookup happens for the value in the string pool. If the same value is already available in the string pool, right? So a new string will not be created, rather the reference of that string will be returned. For an instance, if I write string str1 is Edureka, it means what will happen, str1 will also point to the same string. So literals, they are created once, they are not recreated. Same way, when I will say string str2 is welcome, now welcome is not there in the string pool. So what will happen? A new literal welcome will be created to which str2 will point. So once again, a quick review. String literals, we also call them an interned way of creating the strings. Interned way of creating the strings is where a string literal gets created into the string pool. Once a literal is created, it will not be recreated. So if you said that string str is Edureka, so we are not going to come up again for string str1 is Edureka. So it's gonna point to the same string literal. For a different string literal, we'll have a different, memory region created. So string str2 is welcome will point to a different literal and hence the string pool. So how it is saving the memory? By creating literals once, right? So sharing of string literals, because these literals, they are the values and they can never ever be modified. They are kind of constants now. The way 10, 1, 0 is a literal, it cannot be changed. Same way, these are the literals, they cannot be changed. Now, the other way of creating a string is if you write a new keyword. So whenever you're going to use a new keyword, So it is basically going to create a new object in the heap memory. So for an instance, if I say string str3 is a new string Edureka, what's going to happen? So there will be a new object created in the heap memory. So it's like just the other objects which get created in the memory, right? So it's always a new object. It's not going to point to the string pool now. So guys, this is the difference between how we can create a string literal and how we can create a string object. So object construction happens with the new keyword, and it is always a new object. So even if I will say string str4 is a new string with Edureka, it will be a different object constructed in the memory. Even though the contents are same, but new keyword will always create a new string object in the memory. Now we'll see some string methods. So guys, we got string class, which is a built-in class, and we will be exploring these methods. What are the built-in methods? We will also try to explore them practically. But let's first of all have a look on the list. So we got this method called equals, which will check whether the given string is equal to the other string or not. So it's comparing the contents in the string. Now equals ignore case will ignore the case, right? So whether the uppercase or the lower case, it won't matter for us. Length returns the length of a string. Then we can get the character at any index. Now string is a collection of characters. So they are indexed internally from 0 to n minus 1. So char at, you pass the index and you'll get the character at that index from the string. To uppercase returns the string in the uppercase, lowercase will generate a lowercase string, then replace can replace an old character with the new character, and thereafter a new string can be constructed. So remember, whenever we are manipulating the strings, whether the intern strings or the non-intern strings, we are always getting a new string. Now trim is a method which is going to remove the white spaces from the beginning and the ending of the string. Then contains method will give a quick check. So it's gonna search whether a string is existing in a string. So part of string exists in a string or not. To char array, so we can get our strings converted to the character array by calling the method to char array. Then we got is empty to check whether the string is empty or not. Ends with, so we can check that whether the string ends with a specified suffix. For example, you wanna generate an application where you wanna list all the images. So you're writing a file explorer app. You wanna read the files and you wanna check whether their extensions are .jpg or .png. So we got ends with, right? Then similar to the ends with, we even have starts with. Then we got concat, which can concatenate the two strings, right? So it's like appending the strings and regenerating a new string. So guys, let's have a small demonstration on string methods. So I'm gonna create a new Java project. So let us name this as strings demo. So here I'm going to write a class, let's say strings, Java strings. I'm going to say a co.edureka as a package with the main method. There are two ways to create a string. So I will say string str1 is hello, right? So this is known as interned way, or we can say string literals. So where are they stored? They are stored in string pool, right? Now I will say string str2 is also hello. So guys, str1 and str2, they are two different reference variables, but they are pointing to the same literal hello. str1 and str2 reference variables pointing to the same literal. So as we saw in our string pool example during the presentation part. Now, if I'm going to compare these strings, if I will say if str1 is equal to str2, so here I'm gonna say str1 equal to str2. In the else case, I will say str1 not equal to str2. So what are we comparing here? we are not comparing content that is hello. So what we are doing here? So we are comparing hash codes of str1 and str2. Hash codes in str1 and in str2, which will be same for the string hello. Now literal is created once, right? So str1 as a reference variable and str2 as a reference variable, they are pointing to the same string hello. So we are comparing the references here. So when I will run this code, what you will get to see is that they are equal. Now the other way around is where I'm going to say string str3 is a new string of hello. So what is this? This is known as object, string object. That is, we used new operator. So here string object is constructed in heap area with hello as its contents. At the same time, when I will say string str4 is new string hello. So guys, what has happened? str1, str3 and str4 are reference variables which are pointing to two different objects whose content is same. Now that is something which we need to understand. So we are basically having these two different strings, two different reference variables, which are pointing to two different objects whose content is same. So when we are going to compare str3 and str4, we are not comparing the content, we are again comparing the hash codes in str3 and str4, which will be different for the string object containing hello. So you see there's a difference now, right? So if you will compare 3 with the 4, so when I'll compare 3 and 4, you will see it is not equal to. So this is the first proof of concept, and as a conclusion, we understand equals to will compare reference variables, that is hash codes, and not the real content, that is hello. So equal to is comparing the references, it's not comparing the content. And we also saw that if we have a literal, if we create a string literal, so there we get to have the same reference for the same string. So str1 was compared, but str3 and str4 were not compared. So how we should compare, right? So how should we compare strings? There are two ways. The first way, I'm going to write here that if str3 dot equals str4, so that's like the equals method, it's gonna return me the true or false. So I'm gonna say str3 is equal to str4, and the else part where it is not equal to str4. Now when you run the code, you see it is equal. So remember, if you wanna compare the strings, right? So that is the content within, right? So you wanna compare the content within, you never ever use equal to operator, because equal to operators is working, it is working only on the reference comparison, where equals as a method is comparing the content within, right? Now the equals method is one thing, the other thing is compare to method. You can say if str3 dot compare to str4, and if this gives me 0, right? So this is a comparison, str3 compared to str4. In the else case, I can just say str3 not compared to str4. So let us run this code here. So compared to str4 and is equal to str4. So this is what we got, guys, right? As in the two different, if else structures, how we can compare the strings. Now let us explore some string APIs. So more on string APIs. So some string methods to begin with. Let us create a string called str, which is John, Jenny, Jim, Jack, Joe. So we got this string John, Jenny, Jim, Jack, and Joe. And what I'm going to do here is, so I will say the first thing we'll get the length, right? So I'll say int length is str dot length. So we can say CISO length of str is plus the length. Now when I run the code here, you see it gives us the length as 28. So when I get the length as 28, now there are characters, right? So I can just come here and say str dot char at 0 plus a bar plus str dot char at length minus 1. So when you run the code, so even before I run the code, so I'll just print out the str. So let's say str is plus str. So I'm just gonna print the string. So it says str is John, Jenny, Jim, Jack, and Joe. Length is 28. The character at 0 is J, and the character at length minus 1, that is 28 minus 1, 27, is E. So string starts with the 0 and goes till n minus 1, that's like length minus 1. Now considering, I will say str dot to uppercase. I will say str now or str after uppercase is plus str. So we are very simply trying to say that I want to convert the string to uppercase. But when you run this code here, you see that string is not manipulated. So here we see no changes, right? So why we didn't see any change? So reason is that strings are immutable. So when you run this code here, so you see no change. String remains the same. So what exactly is happening here? So you are getting a new string, let's say S1. So you're getting a new string generated, and when you will say see, so S1 is plus S1, so you run the code here, you see that S1 is manipulated. A new string is created. So guys, whenever we are talking about string manipulation means a new string will be generated, but old string will not be modified. So that brings in the first understanding that strings are immutable. They cannot be changed. We cannot modify their content. Now the next part. So the way we got to uppercase, in a similar way we got to lowercase. So I can search in the string. I can say if str dot contains John, right? Or let's say not the John, let's say Jim. So Jim is somewhere in between. So I'll simply come here and say Jim is in the string. You run the code now. It says Jim is in the string. So contains method will help us to check whether a string is there, a substring is there in the string or not. Now considering you want to break the string into a small string, we can use a substring method. I can say string s2 is str dot substring from the index number 5. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 index is this space, right? So I will say CISO S2 is plus S2. You run the code. Now what you see is that the guy John is trimmed off from the space till the end. We got a new string. So this is known as a substring. A substring, you mention the index. So till from 0 to 4, string will be removed, and there onwards, 5 onwards, you get a new string. So even I can say string s3 is str dot a substring. You go from 6 till let us say 10. So let us see what we will get in s3. So I'll say s3 is plus s3. So when I run this code, you see it is saying JENN. Now what is 6? Let us see here, guys, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this 5 till here we got the 5 index. So start with 6, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So 10 not inclusive, right? So what is this? So starts with 6th index and till 9 index, right? So it's like that is less than 10. So that's like substringing. So we can have a string. So we can even replace the characters here. So what I can do is I can say string s4 is str dot replace the character j with the character k. So remember, always you will get a new string, right? So now if you say s4 is plus of s4. So if you run this code here, you see con, canny, kim, cac, and go. So instead of John, Jenny, Jim, Jack, and Joe. Now the next part here, I will try to now get all the characters from the string. So I will create a char array, char, which is str dot to char array. So I have just converted the entire string into the array of characters. So I got the array of characters from the string. Now I can say for char ch in char, so putting up an enhanced for loop. So I'll just do a print, not the print line. And I'm going to print the ch along with some space. That is what I'm going to do. So lastly, I put an empty print line. So when I run the code here, so you see the string with the space coming in. So this was read as an array of characters. So we got array of characters coming in. Now let us take one of the use cases where I want all these names pulled out of this string. That is like str. I want to pull all the names from this string. So what I can do is I can say a string array. So let us say strarr. So we will say str dot split on the basis of comma. So we need to put in a pattern on the basis of which we can split the string. So thereafter I will say for string s in strarr. So I'm gonna do a CISO on s. So when you run the code here, what you see is that we got all the strings coming in. But here we can see some space in the beginning because we got a space in the beginning after this comma, right? So if you want to remove the space, you can just call the method called trim. So trim is going to remove the space in the front or in the end, beginning or ending, right? So now you see there is no space. So splitting will help us to get the strings out of the string on the basis of some pattern, right? Some pattern. Now, moving ahead, I'm gonna write a string called email, which is like john at some example.com, and string like, let's say phone, which is some phone number, let's say 9999 and thereafter 8888 and 8. So some string, right, for the phone number. And let's say there is a password. So for this, the password goes like password 123. So this is data during registration, right? So while we are registering the user, we are going to have this data from the user. So you want to validate the data, right? So we would like to validate the data from user. That is whether the data is correct or not, right? So I can simply come up and say if email dot is empty. So I'll put a not here. So if email is not empty, right? So I can say CISO email is available. Other than in the else case, I can say CISO please provide an email. Now, if email is not empty, email is available, there can be even one more check that if email dot contains at the rate and email dot contains a dot operator. So if it is containing, then it's a valid email, right? So if I'll put a not here, it means that if anything is missing, I can simply say email is available, but email is not a valid email. In the else case, I can say CISO email is a valid one. So this is how we can, use our string operations to check whether we get the correct string from the user or not. So when I run this code here, it says email is available, email is a valid one. So if you don't put the email, so let's say email is empty here and you run the code, so what you see is that email over here is not provided. So it says please provide an email. So same way, if you write an email with missing of @, so it says email is available. All right, so I think here I just need to put a check. Email contains, so it should contain this and this, right? So email is available, but the email is not a valid email. So we can put some conditions and check whether the data is correctly formed or not. At the same time, I can simply come here if phone dot is empty. So if phone is not empty, right? Same way the else part. So please provide a phone number. So here what we can do is we can say phone number is available, and I can put one more check if phone dot length is, let's say, not equal to 10. So we are looking for a phone with the length as 10, right? And the else part. So I can say CISO phone number is a valid one, right? So here I can say, but phone number is not a valid number. So similar validations, right? It says phone number is available, phone number is a valid one. So you miss out the phone number here. You run the code. It says please provide a phone number. So you can get the things in order, guys, right? So if the length is not 10, it says phone number is not a valid number. So we are putting some validations here. So same way you can put it on password. Now all these discussions which we have done, so we are concluding one thing, that strings are immutable. So it means what? If I create a string, let's say string is a new string, and I say hello here, and thereafter I will say string dot concat a space and a world, right? So concat is to append. So we can even append the data like with the plus operator. So that will also append the data. Now I will say CISO string is plus the string. If you run the code here, it is just hello. So this brings up the conclusion that strings are immutable. We cannot change them. So it is always a new string which will be constructed if you are going to do a concatenation. Now we got a version called string buffer. So here I'm going to say hello. Now buffer and strings, they are similar. So we will use append instead of concat, right? So here I'll say world, and now when you will say CISO, buffer is plus the buffer. So what you will see is that in case of string buffer, string is appended. So data is manipulated in case of string buffer, but not in case of string over here. So this brings out that in case you want to manipulate the data in the same string, right? So we got this guy called string buffer, which is mutable. So mutable sequences of the string, they are known as string buffer, as well string builder. So the way you got buffer, in a similar way we have string builder. The only difference is that builder is not thread safe, whereas buffer is a thread safe structure. So the output shall be same for both of them, and the usage is also same. So I will say builder is plus the builder here. So you run the code. So you see buffer and builder, they work same way. The difference is that buffer is thread safe, whereas this guy is not thread safe. So guys, all the three versions like string, string buffer, or string builder. So we are very well aware with the you see strings now. So we also understood what we need to do in case we need to use the mutable sequences. So all three, they implement char sequence. It means the reference variable to the char sequence, let's say CS, it is, let's say, null. So CS can point to a string, let's say hello. CS can also point to a string buffer, let's say awesome, and CS can also point to a string builder. So that's like bye. So that's like runtime polymorphism, right? So this is like runtime polymorphism in action. So this is what we got as in the strings, where strings, they are immutable. If you want mutable versions, you go with the buffer and the builder. Guys, we got many more APIs in the string buffer and string builder. So explore more from here. So I hope this entire content is clear to everyone. So in case you have any challenge, any query, you can just write into the comments. So this is all from my side for the day here, guys. So all the string methods. So thank you so very much. Once again, this is Ishant on behalf of Edureka. I hope you enjoyed the session. So do write in the comments in case you enjoyed it. And yes, subscribe to our YouTube channel and do like our Facebook page. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!